Hi everyone, my name is Federico and welcome to Cuttle's weekly live stream. So I had a request for how to make stamps with Cuttle, and it seemed like a really good subject to tackle. Additionally, there were a couple of creators that posted some stamp templates. So the first one I saw was Tara made this crayon stamp, and it's really neat. It's like sized so you can stamp crayons, and she made a really good diagram here for like the different pieces that you would use to make the stamp. And I'm taking kind of inspiration from this template for what I'm about to show you. So this one is cool because you can type a name here. It shows you the preview of the crayon and the size, and then it gives you the 3 different pieces you need to make the stamp. I'm going to go into that here in a moment. Another cool stamp over here is this teacher stamp that Bonnie made. This one has like a slightly more elaborate look, but like conceptually it's very similar. You can type, the name of the teacher here, the honorific, and then it has it shows you the preview of the top part of the stamp. But then when you download it, you get these 2 sections. Importantly, with stamps, like you want to flip the image. So you can see this image here on the left is flipped, and here you can see that this section is flipped. So I actually went ahead and cut the crayon stamp because I think it's worthwhile checking it out. So here are the 3 parts that are mentioned in that. We should zoom in a little. So this is the top section. I'll just place it like this. So this is the top section, which is like the piece of wood that you would glue the stuff to. And then there is the stamp material. I use that orange stuff that is supposed to be good for laser engraving. And then you could get away with just doing the wood and then gluing the stamp material on it. I'll focus there. But one really nice thing to do is to add like a little piece of craft foam in between. So Tara's template actually has that. This is what this piece right here is. The one in the middle is a piece of craft foam, and additionally she made these like stroke outline, so you can like glue it and like center it really nicely. I thought that was like a really cool feature, so I tried to do that myself. So here it's like, this one is very tiny because it's for crayons. So this is what the foam piece looks like, and you can see that I made an effort to to score the outline. And so the thing you have to be careful, I noticed, is that you have to make sure, because things are kind of flipped, you have to make sure that you glue it in the right orientation. So for example, this one, let's see, I think we have to glue it like this. So you glue the craft foam, which is just EVA foam. You can also like laser cut that, and then you would glue the stamp like that. So notice that that's flipped. And I made this one just to show you, but I glued one, beforehand. I haven't really tested this one on a crayon, so I figured maybe we should do it. I got a couple of crayons. Will it fit? Yeah, I mean, the challenge with crayons is that they're like very round. I'm just gonna give it a quick test. I'm sure it's gonna be a little messy. I got my little like pad over here. So yeah, that looks pretty good. Well inked. I think with the crayon, you might want to like roll it a bit. Look at that. That's pretty cool. I kind of like that. It works. Okay, cool. Nice. Okay. Let's make one. So let me put this crayon aside. I had a second one in case I failed, but like this one looks so good. All right, cool. So I think there are like two options here for making the stamp. And I'm gonna start with the simple option, with what I think is the simple option. The way Tara made this one, you'll see that if I type, the default name Salvatore, if you type a longer name, like let's say my name, my last name, you can see that it starts getting smaller and smaller because Tara used behind the scenes, I believe, let me see, the fit within. Oh yeah, here we go. We got the name. Yeah, so text within box. So that means that any text is just gonna fit inside a pre-sized box, which works pretty well for this application. But I think the one I wanted to start with was mostly like any text, and then if you make longer text, then it's just longer, and then you kind of decide the size of the text. So we know we want those three different pieces. But I'm gonna start with the basic text. So I'm gonna just grab some text, place it in the canvas. Actually, I'm gonna call this one the text stamp. And I'm gonna use a silly word as an example. I'm gonna say cute with exclamation mark. And I found, I was looking for fonts again, and I found this one kind of interesting. There's this one called Fascinate. I don't know, it looked cute. And so now I want to kind of like get the rough size of the stamp that I want. I'm just gonna use the size of the font itself. So I used like a 0.7. Because looking at the preview here, it seemed kind of reasonable that the whole stamp would be like 2 inches. So because this is just gonna be my base sort of text, I'm gonna give it a black fill for now. What should I call it? I'll call it the text. So here's where we're going to start like kind of doing stuff with different components. The first thing I want to do is figure out the stamp material. And so with the stamp material, what happens is that you want to, get a real close up here. With this stuff, what happens is that you want to engrave. So we want to flip it for sure, but we also want to engrave the stuff that is not the thing that we want. So you engrave everything around it. And as you can see in this case, it's very hard to see, but there is an expand added to the text. It's probably more clear on screen. You'll see that the expand kind of follows this. This one's better. It just kind of follows the sort of outline of the text. So I think that's that's kind of like an easy way to approach it. So I'm going to create a new component, and I'm going to call it the stamp. And so I'm going to grab my text. I want to expand it by some amount. So I'm just going to go to modify and go to expand. I think 0.1 seems like a lot. I'm just going to make it a little smaller. But with making it a little smaller, you can see that I started running into that problem of like having holes. So I'm going to remove the holes, for any other text. So I'm going to go to remove holes all over here at the bottom. And the thing I want to, before I do all of these, so I can like test it as I go, I should extract the text as a parameter. So here on the text, I'm going to go to the 3 dots, and I'm going to extract it as a project parameter. So that way we can just kind of test things as we go just by typing right there. Okay. We expanded that. We removed the holes. Then we want to add that text right on top again on the center, but we want to change the fill to white. So at this point, we can do 2 things. because we want to create a file that engraves just the black section, we could, the easy kind of straightforward way to do it is to subtract the top one. So we can go to modify and use the Boolean difference, which works. You can see that now I can sort of see through the letters. So Boolean difference works pretty well. It's very easy to understand. Alternatively, you could use flatten. So if you go to modify and do flatten down here, it will do the same because it's taking the white and subtracting the white from everything. I don't see, I think Boolean difference works pretty fine. So I'm going to stick with that one. And then when you engrave the stamp, now we're engraving that black section. We also want a cut at the end because we want to cut the outline. So weirdly enough, we're going to have to sort of bring another, we're going to have to bring that text back in. So I'm going to drag the text. There might be a more efficient way of doing this, but I'm just going to do it in this way just so I can show you what's happening. So I'm going to bring the text back in. I'm going to expand it by the same amount, which was 0.8. I'm going to, what did I do? 0.08. I'm going to remove the holes again. And then I want to change, because I'm aiming for just the outline, I'm going to take all of these and I'm going to assign no fill to it. And I'm going to assign a red stroke. So I can think of it as like separate operations. So the red stroke is the cut, and then the one with the Boolean difference is the engraving. So there are two objects, two different operations. You can see the red line there. And the final thing we need to do to all of these is to flip it. I could have flipped it at any time, but I feel like it's easier to read as we do it. So I'm going to select both of those, and I'm going to go to Edit, and then there's an option here called Flip Horizontal. So that flips the image, and the nice thing is that, so now these should work with any text that I type. Hard to read again, but you can see, let's go back to cute, exclamation mark. So that's the stamp section, which after you engrave it, looks like this. When I engrave this orange stuff, I usually kind of go back to the sink and wash it with a brush and a little soap, but there is still a little residue there. But so that's the stamp material part. And now for the foam part. So I'm going to create a new component. I'm going to call it the foam. And the foam is very simple because it's basically the same shape of the stamp material. So I'm just going to grab the stamp version. But because it's a single cut in this case, I just want to select the stamp and then apply a Boolean union. So essentially makes every operation a single thing. So the outline turned into a single object. Probably I want to give it no fill and a red stroke. That seems kind of straightforward to me. I suppose I could have done the same thing where like I did this section, expand and remove holes and all of that, but it's done for me already. And this should still work with the with any text. All right, cool. So that's the foam, which is this section. So it's a single cut. It's a silhouette. It just matches the one that I made previously. That's a good one. Now I want to have like the wood piece to hold it. So I'm going to create another component, and I guess we can call that the top part. Just call it the top part. And so the top part is pretty similar, except it's not flipped. So the top part will have the text just to identify it. Then we'll expand it by the same amount. Will I remove those holes? yeah, now that I'm doing all these operations all the time, I'm thinking I could have structured this more efficiently, but maybe it's a good way to sort of understand the operations, because it's mostly expand. So so I want that expanded. That would be my outline cut. So I'm gonna assign a red stroke to it. And then I'm gonna just grab that text again. You could engrave it or score it. I think that's optional. We could leave it as is, but scoring is a little faster for something like this. So I could always change it to no fill and make the... Cool. So check this out. Now I could have my all my pieces. I have the top part. I have the foam, which is flipped. I have the stamp section, which is an engrave and a cut that is flipped. And these are our three components. And this should work with, you know, I could type so this is just like a series of expands and the way we threaded all the things. So I did go ahead and cut that. So here we go. We have the base, which I cut and scored, then the foam, which will go here, and then the stamp part. This is another one I haven't tested. So we have the three parts here. But I did make a second one. Oh, here. My three components, and then the final one. And let's test it. Let's test it real quick. A little piece of paper here. Let's grab the stamp pad. Just making sure all it's well inked. Looks good. So the foam helps because it kind of evens out the pressure. Wow, that's a clean. I'm impressed with myself. That's it's pretty clean. I got a little dirty there. Pretty cute. Let's try one more. I think I'm going to post the engraving settings that I use for this. Yeah, look at that. It's fun. Cool. I'm happy with that one. On Tara's template, she posted the Glowforge and Thunder settings for the engraving, which is nice. I use those these settings that she posted. I use other faster settings, so I'll just put that in the notes. But this is a good start. Cool. So that is like my text stamp. But I think there is another use case, which is like other images or emoji. Yeah. So there's a comment saying that wouldn't you make the top piece a rectangle with a word engraved on it? Yes. I think that's a good one. And the other question is, are you scoring the foam like the original? So for this version, I did not score the foam, but I want to, for the next for the one I want to show you now, I'll do that. So yeah, thank you for the questions. This is good. So I'm going to make one that is entirely different, but it's going to follow the same structure. So I'm just going to make it a new one, a new project. Because for this one, what I want to do is use the emoji. So the idea is that, yeah, I think I separated into two versions. One version, we just use expand for everything. So the shape of the holder and the foam and everything is just based on the expand of that text. But I want to do one where like you just use a square because it just makes it more like what do you call it? More like even or something. Say you want to make multiples of them and you want some kind of uniformity. So I like that that version. So I'm gonna make an emoji. stamp. And I'm going to start with the outline, the sort of holder outline, because I want that to determine the size and everything. So I'm just going to make it into a rectangle. So I'm going to grab a rectangle. I want to make that just a square that is 1.25, 1.25 inches. And I don't want those corners, because those are like poking your fingers. I'm going to round the corners. I think a little bit less than that, so I have more area, 0.2. So this would be my outline. I might be cutting that, so it's going to make it red right now. So now I want to figure the image that goes inside of that. So I'm going to create a new component, because I call it the image. So here's the challenge. So we'll have the outline, and then we're going to place an emoji inside. The deal with emoji and noun project stuff is that like it has different sizes. So if we search for cat, for example, and I select one of those, let's say if I were to scale that up just to fill, as much of the area as I can, then next time I choose a different one, I might run into trouble. I don't know if I got a good example. Actually, this looks pretty good. All of the, this one. So because it might kind of like get to the edges. So I just want it to be sized to fit inside of the area that I decided. So let's find the cat. So I'm gonna do this thing where I extract the emoji as a project parameter so we can change it. So so to size it, what I want to do is use the fit within. So I want this shape to fit within this one always. So I'm going to go to modify, and then there's this option down here, my blocking, called fit within. So that's always going to try and size the base shape to fit it inside of the container shape. But as you can see, sometimes there are like little things that can come out, like the ear. So fit within has the option to just scale it to a certain percentage. So I think like 85 sounded good to me, 85%. That means it's always going to scale it inside of the rectangle, but it's going to shrink it by 85%. So I get like, some support around the edges. So the nice thing about doing these is that then now I can choose whatever I choose, it's gonna fit. Is going to fit inside of it with the sort of margin, kind of like a reasonable margin that I wanted. And the nice thing about this fit within is that now I can actually just don't use the container. So I can uncheck this keep container, and the image is still sized the way I want it, but the container is not going to get on the way for the other operations I want to do. So let's do this, make it black. Cool. So now with the container and the size, now I can go ahead and like do all the other things. So maybe let's make it in order. So I'm going to create a new component. I'm going to call that the top part. So that's going to be just the wood piece that I'm going to cut. So that is going to be the outline with the image. And then this one could be engraved, or could be cut, or scored, your choice. I actually did both just to kind of compare it. So this would be the top part. I scored that one, which kind of made sense. And then I engraved this one, which is actually nicer looking, but it takes a little longer. So it's kind of up to you. Now we need to make the stamp part. So let's make another component. Let's call it the stamp. And so here we get that we want the image. I kind of made two versions for these. So I got the image, which needs to be white. And then I got the outline, which needs to be black fill. Oop, I changed the order so the image is on top. And so now we want to engrave only the black part. We want to leave the white. So I can do a Boolean difference or flatten, whichever makes sense to you. So we are only engraving the black. And additionally, actually, additionally, this red stroke is not gonna work as an additional operation. So, which is gonna be the cut. So let me see. I want this to be black and black. The additional cut on the outside, it needs to be that outline again. So it shows up as an additional operation on your laser cutter. So that's the stamp part. And then the foam part for this version is use the outline as a cut. So that way, or my cut file, which is another, I'm just gonna do another component. Ideally, you would use auto layout in this case, but this is fine. So we need the top part. Oh, we need the stamp, and we need the foam. Savvy viewers might notice that I forgot to flip it. So let's flip the stamp part. So I'm going to select that, go to Edit, and flip horizontal. So when I cut this version, what I actually went ahead and glued it all together. This is what it looked like. So the downside of, so I glued the foam to the top piece. The downside of this version that I made is that, like, notice how I engraved all of this area, which is kind of overkill and uses more material and time, but I wanted to show you that, like, you can do the design part a little quicker. But now I think I want to show you the version, the sort of more optimized version. But cool. Let's test this one. Why not? Yeah, I guess another downside. Actually, it's pretty good. I like it. I was thinking that one downside of doing it this way is that I might end up with, like, too much area here. And sometimes if you're not careful, you can sort of ink the corners, like the way I just did here. And so that was fine. If I overdo the pressure, maybe I will, like, end up, like, pushing the corner down, which is, I mean, sometimes that's a fun artifact of stamping, but, like, it depends how you want to do it. But I want to show you my sort of optimization a little bit to make it a little cleaner. I think it might be a bit nicer to do it. Do I have time? Yeah, let's do it. One question was, if you want a different outline shape, a circle, for example, a circle, would you just use a switcher option? I think a switcher would work if you want a different outline. Yeah, totally. Because, I mean, let's just do it here real quick. If I were to make these a circle, 1.25, instead of a rectangle, I can just kind of test it by hiding the rectangle. And that should kind of, yeah. It's a good question. Thank you. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to do it, but you could, like, use a switcher to switch between a circle and a rectangle, and then all your components should, like, do the trick. How deep did I cut to the stamp to get the image? I'll share the settings, but it's, like, yeah, it's fairly deep. It's a deep engraving. It engraved probably, like, more than 3/4 of the whole thickness. I'm going to show you. Okay, 1 minute. The different version that I made that would be a little nicer is that for the stamp section, I did it like these. I brought it in, then I expanded it. I did an expand offset. I also removed the holes of that, and then I brought the image again. I gave it a white fill, pretty similar, except for an expand, and then I did the Boolean difference, of course, and then flipped it. So that gives me this version, which uses less material and of course less, engraving time. I actually wrote it down. Yeah, this one took me 9 minutes to engrave, 9.5 minutes, and this one took me 6.5 minutes. So some savings. But then we need to kind of register this one on the foam part, which I wanted to show you. So the way I did it is that I need to place it on the outline, something like this. And then I need to place that one in here. Is that flipped? Yeah, okay. So here's the challenge. I want to just have the outline, and then, the way I did the expand is going to like come out of there. So I started by doing just a bunch of funny operations, but I did like a Boolean union on, is that what I went? Oh no, actually I need to remove the holes. So I want to select this one, go to modify, remove holes. And then I did like an intersect between these two, Boolean intersection. So that gives me the score, the kind of thing that I want to score. And then I just bring the outline back in. So the goal of that operation was to have a piece of foam like this one, let me see, where like I cut the outside of the foam, but I still get the outline of the engraved stamp, and I can like center it nicely. And if you look at it carefully, you'll see how it got cut on this end, so it kind of fits in there, and it got a little cut on this end. So that's what the goal of the intersection was. So that was, that was the idea. And this one I scored it. A quick tip I used was like, sometimes you can buy this craft foam with like a sticky back, and that was kind of helpful. So you can like stick it onto this thing. If I want to like really make it durable, I would probably roll my own version of these with some like dual tite or 3M. Final test before I let you go is we could choose any emoji. We choose the emoji here or any image, and so that gives us everything that we need here, including if we use this version, the one with the kind of more fancy time-saving cut. Yeah, most of them should work. If the image is super elaborate, it might kind of have to do some operations, but like, cool. So I think that kind of hopefully gives you the tools to both use text and images. Of course, the image doesn't have to be from the Noun project. You could bring your own SVG into it. But hopefully that gives you ideas to even combine text and images. That's totally doable. All right, cool. Thank you so much for the request. And hopefully I have some like interesting tips here. Sorry, I went a little past the time. Cool. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. All right, bye.